Hey everyone, welcome back to Martial Arts History. The martial art for today is boxing. So boxing is a really well-known martial art and sport in which many of you know boxers will wear padded gloves, usually 10-ounce gloves, to fight their opponent with just their hands. The lighter weights usually use the 8-ounce gloves. So boxing matches are fought in rounds, and the maximum would be 12 rounds for professional boxers. And actually in the early 20th century, it was super common for boxers to have unlimited rounds, which is just crazy to me. So now thankfully there are, more rules in the sport. Boxing is an Olympic game as well as part of the Commonwealth Games, including both men and women. It also has its own separate world championships. Some of the earliest occurrences of boxing actually go way back to the Roman era, during which soldiers would lose their weapons and need to learn how to fight with their fists. So it was kind of a do or die situation. So one of the early reasons to why boxing became so popular is because the Greek Olympic competition in the 8th century actually included boxing as a sport. However, after the collapse of the Roman Empire, not much was seen of boxing. But during the Age of Enlightenment, a lot of people became interested in boxing and brought boxing back up to the surface, made it relevant again. Boxing actually became very popular in London in the mid-1700s, during which time they started to create rules and regulations for the sport. John Broughton created his own set of rules for boxing matches, and those eventually became the official rules. And when these rules were introduced, weight classes were then introduced as well, which is so important because weight plays such an important factor, right? Thanks to the London Prize Ring rules, the weight classes kept evolving, and thankfully now we have 17 different weight classes as opposed to just 2 weight classes. The sport has had so many great athletes, many of which you know. One of the most popular, of course, is Muhammad Ali. To this day, he is still considered to be one of the best boxers of all time. Apart from him, there are so many other greats, such as Sugar Ray Robinson, who was the welterweight champion for 5 years. And then, of course, there's Joe Louis, Henry Armstrong, Joe Frazier, George Foreman, of course, Sugar Ray Leonard, Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. The list goes on, and you probably know several other famous boxers and well-known boxers throughout history. There are so many. More recently, there's, Floyd Mayweather, who I consider to be one of the best athletes there is. I know a lot of people don't necessarily like how Floyd Money Mayweather talks, but to me, it's a part of it, He knows how to get people in the seats, and he puts on a show and he backs it up. I think he's very smart and makes good business moves. And then of course there's Manny Pacquiao. There are so many great professionals in the sport, and it's always really exciting to watch. So due to the popularity of boxing, many movies were created off of, boxing premises or ideas, and obviously I think the most notable film or films would be Rocky, right? With Sylvester Stallone, as you know. People reenact the film all the time. There's so many quotable lines, and if you've ever been to the stairs in which Rocky runs up and does yeah at the top, I think you know what I'm talking about. So I recently went to Philadelphia and went to those stairs. I saw so many people running up those stairs thinking they were Rocky, being so inspired. They even had some people had their music on, and it was amazing to see people become so inspired by that film. Like I said, people reenact it all the time, so many quotable lines. But I think seeing all those people run up the stairs and be inspired by this film and be inspired by Rocky made me realize that much more how impactful films are, and specifically Rocky. Obviously, Rocky was amazing. It still is. It holds up to this day. And then another film, which is actually in my top 5 favorite films of all time, is $1 Million Baby with Hilary Swank and Clint Eastwood. I think it's such a beautiful story and so inspirational and moving. And then, more recently, there's films like Southpaw and Creed. And then there's some famous books about boxing. The Fight by Norman Mailer, The Greatest by Walter Dean Myers, and then there's others like The Sweet Science by A.J. Liebling. There's so many different books and films and shows where you can see boxing or learn about boxing. Boxing requires so much discipline finesse and hard work. So it's not just training to be good physically and be able to, defeat your opponent physically. There's also a huge mental aspect. You have to understand the rules. You have to really try to understand your opponent and get in his or her head. There's so many technical aspects to boxing. So it's not just about the physicality. There is so much more. I have a question for you actually. What do you think is more important in a fight or a sparring match? Timing or speed? Time versus speed. What do you think? So leave your comments down below. I really want to know what you have to say because I had a debate with several friends that turned into this big thing like a few years ago. So I'm not going to give my opinion on it yet. I want to hear what you have to say. Timing versus speed, which one is more important? Obviously, boxers come from, different backgrounds. They have different body types, so they have all different types of techniques. There's like the brawler fighter who is very aggressive and maybe doesn't have the most perfect technique, but usually gets the job done. And there's the more technical person who is more of like a counterpuncher, really weighing in on the fighter, their opponent, and reacting to their actions. If you have two opponents that are very technical, it may be more of a slow match, but for me, it's really exciting just to watch very technical fighters, and obviously it's also exciting to see brawlers, but I prefer the more technical. So there are several different techniques in boxing. The jab, in my mind, is one of the most important punches because with the jab, you are keeping them busy and you're also keeping that distance. It feels like you're in control a little bit more. You're setting up your next punch. You're also finding the timing and distance with that jab. And then of course there's the cross, the hook, the uppercut, and the overhand. They're all very, very important, and when put together in combinations is what makes it so interesting. And then moving around with the feet and really having good footwork is so important. So when all of that comes together really nicely and you blend your combinations up and you try to figure out your other opponent, it's like this game of chess, right? And by using your whole body like that, it's truly such an amazing workout. Boxing is here to stay. I don't think it's going anywhere. It is, one of the first martial arts and sports, and it's so enjoyable to watch. The idea of people fighting each other doesn't sound the greatest. But boxing, to me, in my mind, is two opponents using their skills that they've been working very hard at to play this game of chess with each other. And it's very interesting to watch when you understand that they're not just attacking each other. There's so much thought and training that goes into every move that they make, or at least there should be. So in my mind, because boxing is not just full of aggression, there's also a huge technical side of it. I think that's what makes it one of the most enjoyable sports to watch. And it might be the reason that it's actually one of the most highly viewed sports in the world. All right, everyone, thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to leave your comments down below. I want to know if you think timing or speed is most important. I'm going to throw out one more question actually. Who's your favorite boxer and why? Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And if you have, go and hit the notification bell. And if you want to subscribe to my email list, there's a link for you down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.